Culture Warriors Unchained.
Culture Warriors. Yeah. Unchained. Let's go. Lines in the sand, welcome to the front row. Real life hitting, everybody wanna know. When the spin get thick, who cuts through the chain? AK, David Drew stepping into the frame. Late nights, boots in the dirt. From the grind to the house, to the scarf, to the grease stained shirts. Parents, pay fight for what's true. From the clinic to the warehouse, to your living room. Headlines screaming, but we ain't scared. Faith in our bones, yeah, we came prepared. Culture Warriors Unchained. Where the real ones meet the rage. Where the truth cuts through the noise. Every voice on the stage. Culture Warriors Unchained. From the heartland to your brain. If you're tired of the script, we're here to break the chain.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Culture Warriors Unchained, episode 38. It is the middle of August. It's still hot as hell here in Minnesota. We don't know why. But tonight, we have for you Trump signing some executive orders regarding the vaccine schedules for children. Tucker Carlson lays out a 10-point vision for America. The Senate holds Fauci in contempt. We all saw that coming from a mile away. Stuff is going on in the WNBA. There are some NBA players that are going to go and play for them. They're putting in their names in the ring. And, we've had some fouls happen down in Florida. And we're going to be talking about the fallout from that. But before we jump into all of that, if you guys could hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and share this podcast everywhere that you can. And help us grow. We appreciate that. There's more ways to support us now. But before we get into that real quick, I'm just going to introduce myself. I am the Peruvian Gentleman. You can find me at the Peruvian Gentleman on all my social medias. And I am the Latino immigrant, legal immigrant, I would like to highlight, member of this panel. And I just bring a unique perspective from both being a lover of American pop culture and, all of the nerd things, as well as, prior service military. And then also, like I said, being an immigrant to this country. And I just love everything that we have here. And so I love to talk about that. But real quick, I'm going to swing it over to my co-host, AK. Who are you?
My name's AK Kamara. I'm actually the Republican National Committeeman. And my role really on this podcast is to help show that you can be a national Republican Party officer and not just be a complete dork and loser. I'm a working class guy. I care about culture, politics. I like anime. That's kind of like my thing. And at the end of the day, I think it's important for us to be able to reflect what our actual cultural values are if we want to impact politics. I think that's what is lacking. That's why some people dislike and despise politics. But instead, we need people to be fired up and engaged in their politics. If you guys haven't had a chance, make sure that you hit the like button, hit the share button. More than anything, we need to be able to show people that this podcast is worth listening to. We talk about national issues. We also, of course, are going to talk about Minnesota issues because we are based here in Minnesota. So make sure that you guys hit the like, share button. We also do have something called a subscribe star, which is super dope. It's a way for you to actually support our show from a monetary perspective. Of course, liking and sharing is very, very important. But for those of you that are like, I want to help this podcast grow, I want to help, maybe have this grand idea that we are in person and live when we do our podcast. Well, you can't do that for free. So if you head to our subscribestar.com/CW Unchained, you can actually subscribe to us. There's basically 3 different subscriber levels, whether it's $5, $25, or $100. We appreciate all of that. But this podcast really is about understanding that culture really ties us together. And so, David, if you want to introduce our amazing guest for today, someone that I've interacted with a handful of times, but yeah, please introduce our guest.
What?
Yeah.
We're professionals here. Thanks for that, AK. Real quick question for you though, because you said anime. Did you go to the anime convention that was happening over at the convention center in Minneapolis this weekend?
Yeah, that's not my speed, man. Nothing wrong with people.
All things anime. All right, whatever.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
There's nothing wrong with dressing up or whatever and doing that, but that ain't my speed, man.
I think you'd make an excellent Uncle Zuko. I'm just saying.
See, well, here's the other thing. Like I. And then we will let's introduce our guest first.
We're derailing. Yeah. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, Callie Proctor here with us tonight on the show. Callie, I got to chat with you a little bit before we jumped on, and it sounds like you have a pretty awesome story kind of coming from, maybe, is it accurate to say, someone who leaned a little bit more to the left, and then you kind of had a bit of an awakening during the COVID era, and then there was some issues with some of the violence that was happening in the schools, the Christian schools, and that also kind of finished that arc for you, if you will. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, you summed it right up.
Perfect. Well, would you mind telling the audience a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Callie Proctor. I am I'm a downtown dweller, downtown Minneapolis. I'm a wife and a mom and a Minnesota girl. I grew up in a really small town in Minnesota. Had a long time dream of living in Minneapolis. And I guess I am in a nutshell, a burnt out social worker and a reformed liberal, and now somebody who writes and is occasionally a guest on podcasts.
Love it.
I like all of that. We're going to dig into that in the second hour for sure. AK, so I listed off some things we're going to cover. Also, real quick shout out to Kirsty. Did I get it right this time?
Kirsty. You're getting there. Kirsty.
English is my second language. I apologize. Anyways, she says, welcome to the show. I am assuming that's for you, Callie. Kirsty's she's awesome. She's been one of our bigger supporters. Love what she's all about. So thank you for that chat. Keep your chats coming in the live chat. We'll answer them. If you have questions for us or you want to disagree with anything we say, in particular AK, I will read those with glee.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just clarify something. The reason why I don't go to like Comic-Con and stuff, one, I don't really care. This is gonna sound awful.
I love that you're still on this.
Just listen. We
got news.
Listen. I don't really care so much about the creators of these animes. Like, it's never been my thing. I don't care to meet them, or even like the voice actors. Like, not important to me. I like the stories of the animes that I watch, and so that's why I like that. Number 2, though, and this is more of like an AK thing. I think that I don't have the body aesthetic type to dress like the characters that I would really want to dress like. Imagine me as Luffy. Okay, Luffy is one of my favorite anime characters of all time. I would look ridiculous like Luffy. Okay, all right.
Listen.
Or Goku. I would look ridiculous. Okay.
Listen, AK. We're trying to get the subscribe stack. We're trying to get that growing.
The subscribe
I'm just saying,
star?
if we had pictures, the subscribe star. I'm just saying, if we had pictures of you in cosplay, and that's what people get if they sign up for the $100 the Culture Warrior Unchained package. I'm just saying, I think we do numbers. We'd move some subscriptions.
Maybe we would. But yeah, let's get into our first topic. Something that I think is
for the love of God,
huge deal. A huge deal for something that President Trump did before the general election, and that was joining hands firmly with the Maha movement. And if you go and you pay attention to how small groups of people move from kind of one political following to another, like that's really the game of politics. Sometimes you can get larger swaths, but usually it's very small groups of people. And I believe it was Andrew Langer, who has, I've heard him say it a bunch of times, but that's really the game of politics, moving small groups of people over to your political camp. And one of those groups was the Make America Healthy Again group. And that's a lot of moms and dads that weren't really like politically activated, but cared about their kids. And President Trump, I think, has delivered in a very, very big way today with the executive order that he signed, essentially by reducing the mandatory childhood vaccine schedule from what it was sitting at, which was a pretty large number of 72 vaccines, and reducing that down to 11. So he did this through his executive order, and this is from Post Millennial. So take her away, my friend.
President Donald Trump signed an executive order directing his administration to reshape the federal government's recommendations for childhood vaccines, moving ahead with a major change to the nation's immunization schedule in order to fight the increase in autism. We're breaking up the vaccines, and we're breaking them up into time periods. Okay, not so complicated, and we think we're going to have a tremendous result from doing that. Very simply, large amounts of vaccines, large amounts like vats of vaccines are currently pumped into your child's body, and we're doing 20% of that each visit, and we'll let time elapse between visits so the body can handle this massive amount of fluid being pumped in. Trump
In which
said
way
from the
President
Oval
Trump's
Office.
saying, as he says, right, a vat pumping tremendous amounts of fluids into your body. President Trump is a very visual man.
Listen, he paints a picture with his words. All right.
Yeah, no, he does. But yeah,
when
let's
this man
let's
leaves
get
the
in,
Oval Office, we need him to write some haikus. I think
Yeah,
it'd be great reading.
we can get into some of the more specifics about what the
Yeah.
vaccine schedule
Yeah,
is.
absolutely. Vaccine treatments for certain other diseases will instead be recommended primarily for children considered to be at higher risk. That category includes RSV, monococcal antibodies, as well as vaccines for hepatitis A, hepatitis B, meningococcal B, meningococcal ACWY, and whatever that last one is. Denuge?
Sure, man. Dengue.
I don't know. Why are we asking?
It's
We should be asking them. Yeah, the
What
mother.
is it?
Please
Let's
tell us.
ask.
What
Let's
is it?
ask Callie.
Dengue.
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 Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah, I wouldn't guess
anime.
that.
Dengue.
It does sound anime. It also sounds a little gay. Never mind. I'm not going to get myself canceled today. Other vaccines will be subject to shared decision making, meaning parents would discuss vaccination with their child's doctor. Trump touted the measure as a big win for parental rights. Those vaccines include vaccines for, oh my God, you're doing this to me today, rotavirus, meningococcal disease, influenza, and COVID-19. The order also calls for measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine to be separated into 3 individual shots. Trump has previously called for the combined MMR vaccine to be changed.
All right. So essentially, like I said, this is a huge, huge step and win for a lot of the MAHA movement. And I think that President Trump, that, really delivering on these things is how we keep our coalition together. Arguably, I would say that the MAHA branch of MAGA has been, or MAGA, depending on how long you've been saying it, have been one of the more important kind of coalitions, because it does cut across a lot of Democrats that have, ties with the Kennedy, obviously with Secretary Kennedy, obviously Bobby Kennedy doing what he does, Bobby Kennedy Jr. And so at the end of the day, I think this is a huge win. I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, Callie, as a mom with a child that's probably ran through the gamut of a lot of vaccines. Like, how do you feel about this executive order? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just genuinely curious.
Yeah, the vaccine stuff has never been like my thing. It's never, I have different feelings about it. I would definitely not consider myself an anti-vaxxer. I'm not anti really anything except for the idea that like asking questions about medical interventions, especially government mandated medical interventions, makes you some kind of like unsafe or unstable person. So, as someone who kind of like limits of government intervention, yeah, I think it sounds fine, honestly. Like it's not like I don't get like super fired up about it like some moms do. Like I know some moms who like they think that like, you're like abusing your child if you use like, fluoridated toothpaste and things like that. But I'm not quite in that camp.
Sure. No, I think you can have this very candid conversation, but to me, and I've often said this when I'm having this discussion with people, it's not about whether or not you're someone who says, I will never put another vaccine in my child's body, or I want to put all the vaccines in my child's body. It's about giving parents the right to choose what is best for their kid. And I think we got to a point where, there's some infographics going around. One was shared by, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, showing that in Europe, there's only 11, which if you kind of look at what President Trump's executive ordered, we have 11. But before that, we had 72 vaccines were on the childhood schedule. So if you're a person that says, I'm going to give all 72 of these, like no matter what for the rest, if I have 50 kids, all of them are going to get 72 vaccines because this is what I believe, that's your choice, right? We can, have this conversation. Some people say, well, that's evil. How dare you do this? I have always been of the position and belief that you need to empower people to make their own choices with the medical professionals that they trust. We can have secondary conversations about, is this a good vaccine or a bad vaccine? But ultimately, that's a choice for parents and for us as individuals. So that's really what's been at the crux of this issue. So I'm kind of curious your perspective, David, as someone that obviously, in your professional career, there's been conversations and kind of like, hey, if you don't do this, you might lose your job just because of the career field that you are in. What are your thoughts on this, man?
Yeah, well, I actually have a couple of different relationships with this topic. Because being an adopted kid, from the third world, I didn't have any of the shots. And then for my parents to bring me into the country back in the 90s, I basically had to get all the shots that were required in the 90s, kind of all at the same time. And to this day, I still have a little bit of a mark on my arm from that time when just, needle after needle and whatever else was going in there. It's a good time. Don't recommend it. Thankfully, I don't remember how that felt. I'm sure my arm felt like a piece of shredded cheese or something for a couple of days. So there's that side of it where I don't know how much choice my parents were given. It was more like you want to adopt this child and bring them to America, you have to do all of this. And I mean, I get it from where I was coming from, but at the same time, me, I tend to lean a little more libertarian. And I mean, we don't tell people they can't smoke 10 packs of cigarettes a day. We don't tell people that if you drive
dang right, you ain't gonna say that to me. America.
we don't tell people that they can't drive through the McDonald's drive-through 4 times a day, right, for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack. But we're gonna mandate this because it's for the common good and the health of everybody. And it's like either we doing maximum, everything's for everybody's health, so everybody should be on a high protein, low carb diet, and nobody smokes, drink water, that's it, soda's gone, right? Like I agree with you that the freedom of choice is more important, because you're going to have the people that they go to the gym, they eat healthy, they take care of their body, and you're going to have the people that sit in McDonald's all the time. And I'm not ragging on McDonald's. In fact, McDonald's, you want to sponsor us, I'm here for it. But
Sell out.
I just settle, right? Yeah, I'm just saying, like, freedom of choice is what this really comes down to. And I agree with your take on that. Like my parents, I don't believe that they were given options. I think they were told, if you want this child to come to the United States, they have to have all of these things. And I mean, after all the time and effort that they've already put into it, I mean, who's going to say no? At that point, you're going to feel stuck and you're going to do it. Real quick, while we're still on this topic, we got a couple of chats here. Kirsty, I got it right that time.
You got it. You crushed it, bro.
I got it. I'm gonna record that later and just play it. It's gonna be by ASMR while I sleep. She just says, "You're getting so much better, David. I appreciate that. I'm trying. English is my second language. I've been here since I was 5, but I'm still gonna use that. The number of vaccines was incredibly ridiculous. I'm so glad that has gone down." And then we have a comment from Don Ackerman Jr. The freedom of choice is key. You can offer it, but it should be an offer. Obviously, we need informed consent. And I appreciate that comment. Do you guys have any thoughts on those 2 comments?
Well, yeah, informed consent obviously is what matters more than anything. I think reasonable people can disagree. Like, I genuinely think that. I think when it comes to putting things in your body, you can make that choice. Like, listen, to your larger point, David, if we go down this path, and this is where I think we were going, which I am not authoritarian or fascistic, but most people on the left are when they start talking about things like vaccines. And then when you start seeing how they've implemented, sin taxes, soda taxes, and saying, well, it's unhealthy for you. At some point, you get to an aspect where you're like, yeah, the government should tell you exactly what to eat and what to do with your body. And I'm 100% against that. Give me the knowledge and let me make my own choice because it's my life. And the argument that the left used forever was that, well, no, when it comes to vaccines, it's about us. It's about the rest of the population. And again, I think reasonable people can disagree. I think there's clearly certain things that can have a absolutely devastating impact to a community from a health standpoint. So I'm not saying that every vaccine is awful, or that no vaccine should ever be mandated. To a point, probably we can have that discussion, but I think this is a huge first step. I also wanted to bring up, again, in alignment with the MAHA movement, that Secretary Kennedy announced landmark food policy reforms to advance President Trump's MAHA agenda. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services today announced 2 landmark actions to modernize federal oversight of food ingredients and establish a stronger scientific foundation for future nutrition policy. HHS proposed a rule requiring manufacturers to notify the U.S. FDA, well, I guess the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, when concluding that the use of a substance added to human or animal food is generally recognized as safe, GRAS, and alongside with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, submitted for final review the federal government's first proposed definition of ultra-processed foods, UPFs. Nearly 60% of American diets is made up of ultra-processed foods, and childhood obesity now affects more than 1 in 5 American children, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said. We cannot reverse America's chronic disease and epidemic without transforming our food system. These historic actions bring greater transparency to what's in our food and stronger science to federal nutrition policy. President Trump and I promised to make America healthy again, and today we are turning that promise into policy. So I think that, again, when you couple this along with this vaccine childhood schedule rollback, I think that it's just to show people as we head into the midterms, because we have to be honest about people's motivations for staying in the political fight. You have to be able to show people you haven't forgot about them. You didn't just use them to win political power and then you just run roughshod over all of the people's kind of things that they voted for that they wanted to see more of. When it comes to, basically labeling these foods and requiring that, again, people are learning more about what's in their food supply. Kind of curious from your perspective, Callie, as a mom too, is this something that you like to see when it comes to even just like, raising your child? Is that something that you're super conscientious of like what you're feeding them? Just kind of curious your perspective.
I love the idea of being a crunchy mom. Like I envy these moms. I think they're amazing. But I'm like giving my kids Skittles and stuff. However, I do wish that I'm like all the red dye. He's getting all the red dye. But I do wish that
real quick for the lay people, what is a crunchy mom?
A crunchy mom is like, all natural, no preservatives, no dyes, no fluoride, like anti-vaxxing kind of tends to go with that. Yeah. and I think they're amazing. They always make sourdough. That's like their thing.
Sourdough, they're super dope at sourdough
Yeah,
for
just
sure.
like lots of stuff from scratch. They're definitely not like, going to Costco and just like buying a bunch of stuff with preservatives in it. But anyway, I think more transparency is great. So yeah, I think it's good. I have 2 comments and a question.
Yes.
So first of all, I love Kirsty because she seems like she's like the mom of the show, and I think that's amazing. And second of all, I was just thinking about like the freedom of choice thing, and I think that's great. But to me, the issue with it makes me think a lot about COVID times, is that like freedom is all good until you're infringing on the rights of another person. And I'm not saying that's happening. I'm just saying that is interpreted so wildly different amongst people, which is why I think about the COVID stuff and how it was like, yeah, we should be able to make these choices, but you are killing other people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's my comment on that. And then my question is, so like, what does this actually look like in practice? So does it just mean that, because like you can still kind of like you were talking about, David, get a medical exemption or religious exemption. So that still applies. And then, is it just like for public schools, they are like the list is smaller now as a doctor offering you less, but then you can still get the exemption for all of them, kind of similar to how it was?
Yeah, no, super great question. So let's start from your last and work backwards. So when you know what, I'm going to join both of them together. So when you have that conversation about freedom to make decisions about yourself, but are you hurting other people? This was the biggest problem with COVID and what the science told us was correct, because they told us that there were mortality rates of like, oh, it's going to be 10%. Oh, if you remember, Governor Walz got out there and his death tracker was like, if we do not do these specific things, the lowest death toll is going to be 60,000 dead in Minnesota just from COVID by summer, right? So these numbers were wildly off. And if you remember, there were people that were epidemiologists, that were virologists, and said, I get that this is a novel virus. Ain't no way that we're going to see these type of death rates. We're going to see close to the flu because of what we've seen. So the reason that's important is because if you start to adopt a mantra that says, well, if you are putting other people in danger, you must be forced to do this thing, I would err on the side of always people should be informed. And if you are a person that says, I don't want to expose my child or myself to this virus, and I believe that the mortality rate is going to be 20%, is going to be 30%, at some point you say, okay, well then you are informed to make your own choice, but we are not going to pin you down. Now, if we're talking about like true mortality rates where, 4 out of every 10 people are dropping dead, I think that my quaint idea of freedom basically gets flushed down the toilet, because then we're like talking about, bubonic plague levels, death wipeouts, but that's not what was happening. So the reason that's important in its context is now you add it back into the last question that you asked. And ultimately, if the vaccine schedule is rolled back to say, here's what we know the science shows us, and we are now pushing back on the core basis that by trusting the science, it means that there is no actual tension. And if you as a parent want to say, I like the old vaccine schedule, me and my doctor talked about it, and we're going to get all 72, that should be your choice. But the question is, why was it 72 when all of Europe is 11? Now, there's a bunch of, I'm not trying to straw man this argument, because maybe there's a good reason. Maybe Europe just sucks at healthcare. But my understanding is that like they have some of the highest health care scores in the globe. And, especially for the Democrats, they've often talked about Scandinavian healthcare and how it's so much better or whatever, right? Like, so ultimately, I think
they reference Europe whenever they bring up universal healthcare.
Right. So ultimately, when you say, what does it look like? And by changing this vaccine schedule, I think you are now pushing on the core issue. If the science is saying that this is what you must do, we should say, why is it that, when there clearly is disagreement? And this, by having the government, an official branch of the government that has a bunch of scientists that were very rigorous, that's why I think it took so long to finally roll this out. Now you can say, well, yeah, what was being pushed and fed before clearly had a political bend, which I believe the evidence is so overwhelming that it clearly did, that this can actually push back against that now and say, well, listen, like, we have a bunch of data now at this point in time that shows that maybe mandating all of these vaccines is something that's not good. And so therefore we're going to roll back what the mandates are. But yeah, you're still free if you want to take 72, vaccines or 152 vaccines for your kid. That's, to me, where I'm at now. Some people might say, no, you if you give your kid 10 vaccines, you should be locked up and go to prison. But that's nothing that's actually been passed. And I don't think there's been any serious consideration to go to that extreme. Well, I have some good friends that actually do believe that if you give your kid an mRNA vaccine, you are literally writing a death warrant for them. And we can have that discussion with people, but that's not where I'm at. And that's what I don't think most people would be at that point either, because now you're going the opposite, saying you can't do this. And it's like, well, I don't think that's good. So kind of, what are your overall thoughts on it?
Oh, I just wanted to say I agree with you, and I like Don's analogy in the chat.
Yeah.
Helmet analogy. And also, Kirsty, I totally agree. Moderation. I'm exaggerating a little bit. I'm not, as President Trump would say, like pumping my child full of vats of red dye.
Yeah, David,
That's the start of it. That's the start of an anime.
You want to slam through some of these comments, my friend?
Yeah, real quick. From John, our day one. Shout out to John. I wish we knew what shots led to autism. That is actually a great thing that they should look into next. Is not
they have been. No, listen, they have.
Well,
been.
I'm saying that should be the next thing that comes out.
Sure. They kind of did, right? So this is where everything sucks. Okay, everything is so political. You can't just be like, here's what the science shows. It's like, well, not my science, and it's like my consensus, and it goes back to all this question about what is science. It's about saying, here is the idea of a problem that we're trying to solve. Here's what one of the best working theories is, and then you rigorously test it. But what I think had happened is that you were ostracized. So right now we're almost at a point where you either say, well, I don't believe that vaccines cause any autism. And then people say every single vaccine is going to give you autism. And both of those things I think are false. I think there is an area where, yes, indeed, there are certain, maybe it's a genetic thing where there is clearly some type of link that is occurring with the amount of autism we are seeing in a broad spectrum of people. And again, from a scientific standpoint, okay, correlation does not equal causation. That is true. So there's clearly, though, something that has been occurring, and I'm interested in seeing what that something is. But again, it's kind of a broader discussion and debate.
My big pushback that I think a lot of people are feeling is, like, you keep referencing science. The issue with science is that we had 4 years of the political organization in charge working numbers and telling us what the science was, and only now, years after the damage has been done, years after children lost out on a huge piece of their childhood with their education and and all of that, is it coming out that none of that was accurate and that those numbers are being fudged. And so I think people having a healthy skepticism of like the evidence. That's not a negative thing. I think we should have always been allowed to have that.
100%.
And so I think that's like that would be the pushback, I think, from a lot of people when people are just saying, like, well, we should lean on the science. Okay, but whose science? And that's where you sometimes get that not according to my science, because you had people with interests, right? You had the pharmaceutical company had their interests, the Democrats had their interests, right? You had all these different companies, the health insurance companies had their interests, the hospital systems that were billing people had their interests, and everybody was fudging numbers to make things work out a certain way to their benefit. And I think that's where a lot of that skepticism comes from. But real quick, back to the comments here. Kirsty, this new food information will be huge. We need this for our food supply 100%. I'm a big proponent of carnivore. I think that it does a great, it's great for everybody, in my humble opinion. Not recommending you do it, talk to your doctor. In moderation is what we need to remember. If moms allow their kids to have some, they won't go crazy when they get it on their own.
Yeah, just
Again,
talking about like different food, right? Like,
mhm.
I think that some people want to live in like this purist mentality. I think that's crazy. It's I think a very wise thing to explain to people that moderation is pretty important. This is as a general rule. Obviously, addiction's real. Some people can't moderately drink alcohol because they're raging drunk. Some people can't even use like party drugs. Like they're gonna go ham. Some people can, but so it's a general rule. Yeah, like if your kid can't eat just like a handful of Skittles and they have to crush a share size every time you pop one Skittle, probably moderation isn't the key there because they probably just need to be told you can't eat all the Skittles.
On
I
a
always use
real
party
addiction
drugs in
question.
moderation,
what
so.
what'd you say, Callie?
What was
I,
that?
I said I always use party drugs in moderation.
Of course. I mean, let's keep it 100.
Since we're talking about addiction, AK, how many times have you put a can of Skittles back in the cupboard half
A
full?
can.
Like when you get those, or not Skittles, Pringles. Sorry,
Um,
I'm not much of a Pringles guy, but I will say
Okay.
that I am a fat man. I have a basis. I have a basis of muscles. I'm genetically gifted in that perspective. I've always been very, very strong, but I'm fat, and I'm fat because I eat a lot. And so, yeah, if I open up a bag of Doritos, like it's not even willpower. Like there's got to be something that's happening that will make me like stop eating the Doritos. Like it's a very, very conscious effort because I can crush food, man, like nobody's business, dude.
You know what,
So
AK? You're just a great American patriot. You're not a quitter, right?
that's
This
right.
nation
That's
was
right.
built by people who don't know how to quit. You
Yeah.
didn't quit smoking. You didn't quit that bag of Doritos.
Well, I
You
did
just
quit
got
smoking, but
okay
unfortunately I've restarted. So
okay, selfishly, one thing that I was
because you're
really
not a
hoping
quitter.
with like the Maha movement would not happen is that I was really concerned that Doritos were going to be altered because
so let me ask you this.
I think that cheese dust is like it's so addictive. Like there's something in there, and I don't know what it is, but
Here's what I've actually figured out and found, even from my own whatever. Most of the changing of the food dyes literally had nothing to do with taste. It was about vibrancy of color. And so what I've actually found is that like using natural colors just makes it look duller. It tastes I would argue just the same. It's not like it gave it better flavor. It just made it look more delicious.
I'm fine
Um,
with that as long as that
yeah,
does.
yeah. No, if I'm same with you. Listen, I am not as clearly by my BMI index. Okay, I'm not over here eating healthy, clean life. Okay, I have been in moderation. I've actually lost 34 pounds in the last month. Shout out to me. But at the end of the day, okay, I am not a person that's gonna say like, oh, you're a bad person if you eat like whatever fast food. I love the taste of all types of processed foods. But back to this entire story, giving knowledge to people and letting them make informed decisions it's a good thing. But here's the last little piece, and then we can move on to the next story. There's a lot of people in society that require guidance from the government to make decisions because they don't trust themselves or other people. And I know that that is sometimes harsh to hear. So when the government, an official institution, comes out and does a thing, it will then make a lot of people say, okay, so it's okay if I do this, or it's not okay if I do this. So, like, to a certain people management level, that's why we need institutional support on making some of these choices, because the rebels out there, we didn't care what the government thought in the first place. Okay. But there are a lot of people that do care. And my doctor, as an example, very, very nice woman, very, very smart. Her and I have had round and round gone. Like, she always asks me, do you want a booster? And I've said to her like a handful of times, now she doesn't ask me anymore. I'd be like, I'll be open to talking about a booster for COVID-19 because I got the mRNA 1 and 2 informed. I made a conscious decision to get it. I don't understand the point of a booster based off of the data that I've read for an mRNA vaccine. And she was like, okay, well, would you be open to having this discussion? I said, as long as you'd be open to having the discussion that you're wrong. And she was like, well, I'm not willing to have that discussion. I'm like, well, I'm not willing to have a discussion if you're not willing to admit that maybe you're wrong. All to say that if the guidance changes, I think my doctor is one of those people that would be like, okay, I trust the science this much. So any final thoughts? Because we've been crushing this topic for a minute, but I think it's been a good conversation. All right. Next story, my friend.
Let's hit it. Man, we were deep in the weeds on that one. I'm not even sure what the next story is.
Tucker Carlson's 10-point vision for America.
Yep, I just saw it. All right. Yeah, pull that up for me.
Let's get cracking on your boy.
Did you
Tucker.
watch that?
Which one? Tucker with your boy Hunter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
No. Okay.
No, I did.
Right.
I did. Yeah.
Tucker Carlson unveils 10-point manifesto amid third-party speculation.
I do like that Axios calls it a manifesto.
I mean, listen, when you're right, you're right. All right. Tucker Carlson used a highly promoted live stream Wednesday to unveil a 10-point vision for America, defining the worldview of a breakaway MAGA faction increasingly at odds with President Trump. Why it matters. After vowing last month to help build a third party, Carlson fueled further speculation this weekend by hosting MAGA dissidents at his home in Maine, where they urged him to run for president in 2028. The former Fox News host stopped short of a formal launch, instead presenting the manifesto as the foundation for whatever comes next. A new political order, he said, could find all kinds of expressions. Carlson said any successor to America's faltering political system should begin with a shared understanding of what the country should be, which he distilled into 10 points. Do you want me to read each one?
Sure. Let's just rock through them, baby.
Whole
you don't
thing?
have to read the whole thing. No. Just
okay. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Fair, sovereign, productive, beautiful, healthy, honest, optimistic, wise, decent, and united.
All right. So I'm kind of curious. Is this tracking at all in the world of mother and social commentator and opinion writer Callie Proctor?
I mean, if you're going to write a manifesto for the vision of the country, I mean, I guess those are all nice tenets to have. I don't know. I mean, Tucker Carlson, I guess, is not the first person to come up with the idea of having a third party. So I don't know. I would want to know, like, what did it go into? I haven't really heard about this. Did it go into like the actual, like where they land on certain issues, things like that? Like what would be?
It looks like there's a breakdown for each point.
Yeah. We'll pull it back up and we'll just kind of go at least what Tucker had said. So we can start here. So number one was fair.
The same rules should apply to presidents, federal agents, and elites such as Jeffrey Epstein, whose impunity Carlson casts as emblematic of an Epstein class enriching itself through a corrupt system. And then for sovereign, Carlson claimed Israel pushed the U.S. into the Iran war through bribery or threat or both, while describing foreign lobbying, corporate control of government, and high-interest debt as forms of slavery. So does that better answer your question?
Yeah, kind of. Sorry. So yeah, I don't know. To me, like a lot of these, they're a little bit vague, and it seems to me like anyone from any party would be on board with a lot of this stuff, which I think is always the problem with anything like this. Like someone, okay, I'm going to launch into like a whole potentially unrelated example, but it's
take it.
Mm-hmm. So today I read about this thing called it's called like a mega, like basically if you've lost like a loved one to the MAGA movement or to conservatism in general, there's like a support group that like people can go to. like Almond sort of, but for Trump. And
Meganon.
yeah,
Megan,
so it's kind of interesting.
AK, we should go.
Yeah,
It would be our friends and family that have disavowed us. That's who goes, not us.
I'm saying if we put on some blue wigs and get like some fake pierced ears, some
Yes, you get
clip-ons.
some
I'm just
fun.
saying. Yeah, the set.
Yeah.
Yes. But I was like reading through their whole description, and it's, kind of all these things that, accusatory, I guess, like these things. But the point of this is that when I was reading it, I thought this is so interesting because for a lot of conservative people, this is exactly how they feel about liberal people. Like it's literally just like the same script, it's the same side of a different coin. And I kind of see that when I'm reading through a lot of this, you're like, oh, is this like, who is this even about? And then you realize that it's somebody complaining about you. And you're like, oh, but that's like how I feel about you. It's kind of like when two people are like calling each other a narcissist,
You're a narcissist. No, you're a narcissist. Yeah.
And they're both probably right.
The thing that is interesting, right? Tucker Carlson to me is a biased political observer, which I fully
Agree
admit.
with that, 100%.
I 100% think that Tucker Carlson is playing on basically certain ideals that he knows pulls from both the left and right. So when it comes to the Epstein class, okay, that's a very loaded term. Do I think there's a such thing as the Epstein class in all reality? I think that's absurd. I don't think that there's a class of billionaire pedophiles that are just running around, causing harm to children and trafficking women. I don't think there's a class. Are there a handful of people that are like that? Yes. Why are they not being caught or whatever? Because when you have hundreds of millions of dollars, it's very, very easy to hide things because you basically can pay for the best of the best. Do I believe that there are political favors that happen? Of course there are. But my point is that by Tucker Carlson using that term, it's a loaded term that pulls people both from the left and the right. I don't think that's by accident. Tucker Carlson's not a stupid guy. Secondly, when he talks about America's sovereignty, he specifically called out Israel pushing the U.S. into war with Iran. There was a group of people on the left and the right that believe that Israel basically dictates American foreign policy. I tend to believe that that's absolutely absurd and false. America dictates American foreign policy, and if anything, America tells Israel for the most part what to do. But we could have agree to disagree. I just think that in general, again, Tucker Carlson is trying to pull people from the left and right, and might be kernels of truth. Is there information that has been confirmed by Secretary of State Marco Rubio that Israel was making a definitive push, and we basically were like, well, we might as well jump on it because we're going to be pulled into it anyways? Sure, there's probably a huge grain of truth, but I think that when Rubio said that, people then extrapolated it to mean more when it could just be like, listen, at the end of the day, we could have been like, stop, and they would have stopped. Or we could have been like, you're on your own, and they probably would have not done it. And so by Rubio not saying that, it doesn't mean that that's not true. So people will just take the thing that they most agree with. Third, when it comes to being productive, America should rebuild farming, manufacturing, and craftsmanship while rejecting an economy dominated by finance, real estate speculation, surveillance systems, and weapons. Again, that pulls from both sides. That's not a Republican or Democrat thing. So all to say, I think that Tucker Carlson and this 10-point plan is pulling from issues that do pull from the left and the right. Does Tucker Carlson believe these things? Maybe. I can't judge what's in a man's heart, but I think they make sense. Beautifying America, American cities are ugly, portrayed by brutalist architecture, graffiti, public drug use, violent crime, making America healthy, which I talked about already, about pulling that Maha coalition of basically former liberals and even some current liberals, I think, that have just rejected the Marxism of the Democrats. Honesty, so declassifying basically everything in a real, true way versus the way that some people feel have been the way that declassifications happen. I would just say that looking at each one of these issues, it's pulling clearly from the left and the right. And I think that Tucker Carlson is trying to attack the very new coalition of both MAGA and the Maha movement of people that are disaffected liberals. He's trying to kind of pounce on it because some of them have been feeling that President Trump hasn't been delivering, and even those that are more, I wouldn't say anti-war. There's definitely some anti-war people, but anti-Middle East war, we'll call it, or anti-interventionists. But yeah, that's kind of my perspective. From your perspective, Callie, do you think that what you've seen, what we've discussed so far, does Tucker Carlson, does it sound like he has something that would be appealing to a person like yourself as a maybe former disaffected liberal, as some people would call it, or maybe you don't even call yourself former, that you're just a realist liberal, maybe? I don't know. It's kind of hard to pin down exactly what you are. But yeah, what would you say?
Yeah, what I do like about it, when I think resonates with a lot of people who I know kind of like have similar views to me, it's like kind of anti-radical, and which is I feel like I know so many people who are like, they're like, I'm not really anything, but what I am not is radical. Like I just want things to be like normal and kind of like rational, and like you can't really argue with most of that. I can't really speak to the Israel stuff, but because I just feel like I'm not informed enough to really have like a really strong opinion about it or even speak about it, I would say. But I think in general, like who can argue with, beautifying your country and like your government being honest? Like, yeah, it all sounds awesome. And I think like kind of similar to what you were saying, that stuff is like the vision that like both sides sort of have, for their party and their, just the policymakers and leaders in general. So yeah, I think it sounds super nice.
I'm curious your position, David. I'd say that you're more Israel critical than, I'd say you're probably the most Israel critical on our podcast. And I don't say that, I'm
no,
genuine.
absolutely. I'm critical of everybody.
I know you're not anti-Semitic. Okay. What some people would say is that you're anti-Semitic, which I would reject that flat out. You're critical of the relationship that America and Israel has. And I think that that's fine. I'm less critical, but that's my perspective.
I'm critical of friendships where you can't call your friends out when they're doing the wrong thing. Right. Or when it's perceived that they're doing the wrong thing, or even being able to sit down with somebody and say, walk me through your decision-making process here, why you're doing this or why you think this is a good idea. And if there's an entire civilization that we can't do that with without being labeled as an ist or a phobic of some kind, then I think I don't think that's actually a friend and an ally. I think that there's maybe a little bit of a sort of toxic relationship there with that civilization, that country, or that friend on an individual level. That's kind of how I look at that. As far as Tucker Carlson's manifesto, we saw him at AmFest. Shout out AmFest. We're going to be there this year, I think. That's still the plan. Outstanding. And I already wasn't a huge fan of his approach at AmFest and some of the stuff he was talking about. And that's the thing, is like, we've heard him talking for how long now? There's so much footage out there of the things he's had to say. And in the middle of like, churches being burned down, people being beheaded in the streets, a guy getting his eyes gouged out, in I think it was Stockholm, or not Stockholm. It was Ireland. Like all this stuff happening. And he comes out and he's like shielding the Muslim immigrant is one of his big things. And I'm like, no, that's another group. We should be able to call out everybody. Like if you're doing something bad, like it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, what you look like you should be able to call out bad behavior. So I've had my issues with Tucker. I agree with Callie. All this stuff sounds nice. My issue is, because I'm a 90s kid, I distinctly remember we had a Bush president and we had this thing called the Patriot Act. And on paper, it sounded great. Who doesn't like patriotism? The towers just fell. We're going to war with the Middle East to destroy terrorism on a global scale, right? Who doesn't like the sound of patriotism? And we got an entire bill, and it's the Patriot Act, and we're all about it. And then, they were using it, and even Obama got to use it to spy on political rivals, journalists, individual citizens. So I think I'm really cautious of things that sound really vague and sound really good when there's no actual like listed policy behind it. Like, what does this mean? How would we execute this this idea that we're expressing. Like, it's one thing to say you want to clean up crime. Okay, well, are we talking about remigration? Are we talking about like harsher sentences? Are we talking about going after the judges that don't prosecute violent offenders and let someone like the guy that killed Irina Zarutska out 14 or 18 times? I don't remember exact number. I remember it was high. It was like either 14 or 18 times that guy had been in and out of prison for violent crimes. It's like, what does that look like? Where is that policy actually going to land? And I think I have a healthy skepticism there when it comes to Tucker, as far as it all sounds good, but I need to see some actual, like, how are you going to implement this?
So one of the things that I think is funny, and again, I'm a biased political figure and actor. I see that Tucker has a game that he's playing for political power. I don't know how genuine he is because, again, like I said, I don't know what's in a man's heart. And what I tend to want to do is take someone at their word, and then we can find out if they actually mean what they say. But what I love is that the White House literally said they dismissed this as an embarrassing collection of mostly whiny turncoats who dramatically overestimate their influence and relevance, while declaring that President Trump is the unequivocal leader of the Republican Party, because along with this 10-point plan for America, the group also was including former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Representative Thomas Massey, and also Joe Kent, who had just left the ODNI under the Trump administration. So I think that it's important to put things in context. I'm not saying that you can't do things that align for a gradual taking of political power without being sincere, because welcome to politics. In order to actually enact your vision for anything, you have to win political power, because we live in a constitutional republic with democratic institutions. But I also do think that when you see all of the pieces, they are making a play for the Republican new mega coalition that is still not cemented, and they are trying to, in a offhanded way, attack President Trump without attacking him, because they still know that he's the king. Like, President Trump commands a sizable group of our base, but if you can peel away, it almost allows you to have leverage over the Republican Party, and under what the future Trump, we'll call it mega coalition, looks like under another leader not named Donald John Trump. So I just think that's my kind of final 2 cents. Any closing thoughts before I move on to either reading some comments? I think we got a couple more comments that rolled in.
We got a comment.
Yeah.
I would say the other thing that does is I think it's gonna scoop up potentially a lot of the disillusioned left. Like, if he can actually successfully launch this party, then yeah, he would be, he'd be able to create more of a power struggle within the Republican Party, because there's going to be the disaffected liberal who doesn't want to vote for the socialist Democrats that are currently running in office, right? And they're not going to want to vote for somebody that Donald Trump's endorsing, because maybe they're a never Trumper on the liberal side of the house. Somebody like Tucker Carlson, who's coming out saying all this stuff in the middle, is probably going to scoop a lot of those people up as well.
Potentially, yeah.
That'll put numbers in his camp potentially. So I see the play. I see where he's going with it. Real quick, Kirsty Hall, one more, says Tucker has changed so much since he started his podcast. I used to support him, but canceled my subscription.
Dang.
Thank you for weighing in.
Looks like Don Ackerman Jr. also said, I agree with AK. I think of it like a helmet. You can choose to not wear one. COVID lies led to coercion. And that was back from that conversation. But yeah, listen, man, some people are out there riding their motorcycle, the crotch rocket, their hog, whatever kind of motorcycle you have. And they're just, you know what, man, if I die, I die, I guess. Right. Like, I know it's illegal. And then you get like a not wearing a helmet type of thing. And then think about wearing a seatbelt. Like, other than the infraction, plenty of people still are like out there rocking without a seatbelt, That's just what they rock with.
If you can handle the incessant beeping in your car.
Right. I know people that have pulled the fuse for that thing, man.
Listen. If you put on the right hip hop song, it sounds like it's part of the song.
Does it?
That's key is
Is
timing.
that what you found? Is that what you found?
Real quick, AK, this brings up a great question.
Yeah.
Have you had a situation yet that's caused you to cancel a subscription to anybody?
Man, I mean, for one, I don't subscribe to anyone. Okay, here's my thing. There are very few people that I actually feel are worth me investing my money into. And those that I have, I probably wouldn't ever cancel my subscription unless there was something that morally was reprehensible that they did. Like, okay, I subscribe to Tim Pool, Timcast IRL, to his podcast, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I would not cancel that subscription, even if Tim said things that I disagreed with, unless like it came out that he was abusing children or he was like some garbage human that like smacked on his wife or something, right? That's basically the only thing that would change for me. But a political shift or position, I can good, people that are well-intentioned can disagree. I also subscribe to Hotep Jesus. Hotep Jesus, he and I have a lot of things I disagree with him politically, but I believe in what it is that he's trying to accomplish. And Phil Labonte, like I'm a subscriber to what he does. I think that he has a very interesting perspective of how he tries to bring information across, and being part of kind of Timcasting. I mean, he's his own entity too, but Shane Cashman, another dude. Now, a lot of these people are centered around Tim Pool. It's just because the content that I mostly consume comes from like a non-traditional kind of approach to life. And I like the differences. If there was like some more left-leaning type of individual that I came across that I was like, you know what, I can really get down with that person, I might. But for a lot of them, it's just not my vibe. But I would just say, again, canceling my subscription, probably not, unless they did something like, for instance, I support people that serve this country. If someone came out, and this happened when it came to like removing a bunch of songs from my music catalog, when Soulja Boy came out back in like, I think it was 2000,
I remember that,
like 10 or 11 or 12, and he said F the troops, I was like, never listen to another Soulja Boy ever again, because that garbage human being wouldn't be able to do anything without having people that serve this country. You can have that position. You can have that position. It's your right. But that to me is like, I never. So anytime like Soulja Boy, whatever, you crank that Soulja Boy, right? Like I removed it all. I was like, if the song comes on, I'm turning, skipping. Don't want nothing to do with Soulja Boy. And even to this day, people that are like, there's been like kind of like some kind of move where Soulja Boy's like said some political things that might be aligned with a right of center perspective. And I'm like, I don't care. I still don't forgive him for that unless he comes out and says, I was wrong. That was very awful for me to say. But yeah, I don't care.
Send him on a USO tour.
I mean, that might like send him on like 10 maybe, and then make him like donate to a bunch of warriors and people that are hurt.
You know who had a great rap career and didn't crap on the troops?
Who's
Snoop Dogg. He went on USO tours while I was over there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and some people like Ice-T served. I think he was in the Army. And he said some stuff against President Trump, and I think he just does that because he's just politically illiterate. But because when he's living in that Hollywood bubble,
Yeah,
like that too.
You're living in a bubble. You don't hear anything else.
When you start getting on the Cheerios box, when you're a former, so it's like he served in the Army, and then he was like gangster rapper for sure, right? And then you're suddenly like 40 years later, you're on Cheerio boxes when you're making songs about like killing homies, and maybe did you do some cop killer songs maybe?
I think that was kind of the thing back then.
Was that a thing? And for him to be on on Cheerio boxes now, he's probably got to be against President Trump.
That's why he's against President Trump, because he finally got on the Cheerio. He's family friendly. He's on the Cheerio box. He's on the Cheerio box. And then RFK comes out and says, all this stuff is poison. Get it off the shelf. Go feed it to your kids. And he's like, I'm trying to move boxes of Cheerios, and you're messing with my business plan to my retirement. He's like, I'm gonna have to go back to dealing drugs and rapping in my 50s. That's what it is. It's not even about Trump's policies. It's the interference with his Cheerio game.
What about you, Callie? Have you ever unsubscribed or unfollowed someone? I know that it's happened to you in a certain sense that people that were close to you like basically disavowed you because you dared.
Well, I'm not big enough to like have subscriptions, but they unsubscribed for my life, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually have. I was thinking about this while when you asked that question, David. And I did, and it's not like a political person at all or a commentator or anything. It is actually a child psychologist that's very popular amongst my demographic and kind of, women who are into like the, thoughtful parenting stuff. And I loved her and her philosophy, and everything she was saying just really resonated with me. I feel like honestly, like kind of changed some of my parenting, like got me through some very difficult times with my fiery little 5-year-old firecracker. Fire. He's intense, so like I was really like looking to this person, like, I could use some tips and tricks here. But anyway, the point is that it was the gender stuff that got me eventually, because I paid for a subscription, which is not cheap, to like have access to everything. I listen to her podcasts all the time, and like I care, but like the whole platform is about kids, and it just got a little bit too much. And then the kind of final straw was one day I was listening to her podcast, and she would have these guests on and kind of like, oh, what kind of problem are you having with your kid? Like, let's like talk through examples and blah, blah, blah. And the mom introduced her kids, or the doctor said, like, so like, tell me about your kids. Like, how old are they? Whatever. And the mom said, they're 4 and 6 and they're little girls. And then she stopped herself and she said, well, for now, we'll see what happens.
Ooh.
That has become the norm, like with this person and her like huge platform. And that was kind of, wasn't interested in that. So yes, that was probably the only thing I've really unsubscribed to.
Now, again, what I had said is that I think for a lot of people, it becomes a moral thing. So in this case, I don't think that affirming a child in gender, right, affirming their gender with chemical alterations or even surgical interventions, I think that morally that is evil. I'm not saying that people that do it are intending to be evil. I just think that morally it is evil because you are taking away and forever ruining a child's ability to make a decision over something that you are supposed to be there to protect them. If your kid came to you and said, mommy, chop off my right foot, I don't feel like I need to have a right foot. I just feel like I should be one-footed. And they just kept on telling you, crying, oh, I just want to have one foot. If you will chop off your foot, you'd be like, dude, what did you do to your kid? Like there, and you could come and say, well, yeah, but look at this. And, I was affirmed by the community and all this different stuff. I just think that it's wrong. And so it's a moral line where I think that it makes perfect sense that you would unsubscribe or unfollow in the same way that, and I know that some people, we're not big enough on this podcast to get clips, so I don't care. Someone might say, well, you were mentioning if someone was that did harm to a child, like pedophilia or something like that. Yeah, I legitimately view this in the same way. Like, I think that it is a morally awful thing to do to affirm a child like that and do medical or surgical interventions. I think that you can literally wait until your kid is an adult. And then at that point, adults make their own decisions, and more libertarian on that thing. But yeah, man, since you asked the question, David, have you ever unsubscribed, or you got to follow up, Callie?
Oh, no, I was just going to say there's also an element of like her selling out. Cause like I kind of felt like, oh, this person's like really like smart and rational. She's a doctor. And I feel like knowing nothing about it, like I think there's just so much pressure when you become a public persona like that. So I don't even know, like, does she actually believe that? I don't know, maybe not. But yeah, selling out is part of it also. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, have you ever unsubscribed, David?
Oh man. I was a hothead in my 20s. And I didn't have a lot of patience for people. So yeah, I mean, there was some stuff I unsubscribed from. Also, even like the free YouTube channels, I have from time to time unsubscribed from something where I'm like, I don't need to see any more of your content. You're being dumb. And then I'll come back later and be like, all right, what have they been talking about lately? Every once in a while, it's good to take a break from someone if they're disturbing your peace. Ladies and gentlemen, protect your peace. That's I don't know if that answers your question or not, but yeah, there's been a couple. Probably the big ones, ironically, are all pop culture based, like people that do like movie reviews or talk about like book adaptations to film or TV. And then you'll hear someone that like you respect a lot of their takes, and in one video they're, you know, we have to preserve the original, what was the message of this story, or what race was this story about? Was it about Anglo-Saxons? Was it about people from Asia, right? And then in the next thing, they're shilling for a company, and you can just see from the merch behind them in their podcast studio that they just got a ton of free stuff to say lots of positive things. And I'm like, all right, you don't have any integrity. I can't listen to you anymore. So I have had a couple of those. But
100%.
Speaking of people unsubscribing from you, Callie, we're kind of here. We're a little late into the second hour. We got a little bit of a late start, but we want to get to know you a little bit more. You and I, as I said before, we got to talk a little bit before the show, and I know you know AK a little more than that. So we'd like to hear your story. How you're a reformed liberal, potentially maybe
Reforming.
not full,
It's kidding.
reforming, potentially not like a full MAGA Republican, maybe somewhere in the libertarian camp in the middle. Kind of tell us from your perspective, how did that journey start, and what kind of made you start to look at things?
Yeah. Okay. So I think the funny thing about it is that I never considered myself like, I never called myself a Democrat. I voted mostly Democrat for most of my life, but for so much of my adult life, I was like very apolitical, like literally did not care. Didn't even vote for years. Just had zero interest. I felt like it was like some of it was pointless. I felt like I wasn't well enough informed, lots of different reasons, but whatever. But I kind of was within this circle, like I was of people who I just, they were smart and people I respected. And so I just kind of, because I didn't really care, that was what I went along with, because it seemed like, and I think part of it too is like, I worked primarily in like human services and, with vulnerable people and marginalized people. And there was just this attitude that like, if you are working in this field, or if you're a compassionate person, that like you just naturally sort of gravitate toward this and vote, this way. And by this way, I mean like vote, left leaning, and just kind of have these views, and that anyone who doesn't is like unintelligent, uninformed, like simple-minded, maybe just confused, kind of like all these sorts of things. So anyway, that was kind of like where I was at for a long time. And then I kind of started thinking a little bit more about things, especially around the start of the COVID era. And that was a really wild time. And I think me being pregnant during that time with my first child was a big factor, because I think like a lot of other people so much felt crazy. I mean, just like straight up crazy and unbelievable. And sometimes we still talk about it now, and we're just, I mean, it's like, I can't even believe that happened. And that kind of led me to sort of really start questioning like the people around me, what I was, being told. And and honestly, thank God my husband and I were on the same page the entire time, because I feel like I've met couples where there was like a huge split. Like maybe one of them's like, you have to trust the science, and I knew a couple who they were living together, and the boyfriend actually would like force her to quarantine and like live in the basement when she was having like cold symptoms. Like he wouldn't, like she was just like a little like
Brutal.
in the basement or something. He would just like toss her down food. Like, I don't know. Anyway, the point is, I'm just like so glad that we were on the same page. We kind of had this like reckoning together.
Are they still together?
Yeah.
Oh, pray for that girl, everybody. Anyways, sorry, it was a burning question. I couldn't let it sit.
Maybe it was just
Please
dark
continue.
times. Dark times.
I
It's dark
guess.
times all around.
Well, anyway, it was a very divisive time, like even within households and families and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm always like so thankful that my husband and I were actually on the same page and just kind of were like, ruminating on this stuff, in similar ways. But yeah, never really talked about it because again, it's like you're in the same circle for so long, and then everyone just assumes lots of things about you. Nobody ever really asks you like, what do you think about this? They just assume that you're always on the same page. And then my son was present during the school shooting at Annunciation, and that really kind of just, I don't know, sort of, I fell apart like in so many different ways. And he's good. He was physically unharmed, thank goodness, and he was with his preschool class, but I just couldn't handle it. And I wanted to talk about all these things that it felt like I couldn't talk about, which led me to talk about them. And then that led me to talk about a lot more stuff that I've been thinking about for a long time. And yeah, and then everyone hated me. I guess this is the ending of that story. And now I'm here. So yeah.
So I just want to kind of go through a couple of different transition moments that are, I think, very eye-opening to a lot of people that in a certain sense, Callie, and I don't say this like trying to like blow smoke, I think that you were a relatively normal, we'll call it metropolitan person, right? Like you grew up in a small town, but as an adult, you moved to the Twin Cities metro area, right? And I think that sometimes in a political realm, we tend to oversample what we think normal people are like. And I think that kind of what you're describing is how a lot of normal people were. It's like you're doing the best that you can to live your life. You're trying to be helpful in ways that you think are important to society, and do the best that you can. And like you said, like help, disadvantaged populations of people and all these different things. But then you just were like, okay, I'm cool. But yeah, we're doing a lot of crazy stuff. Like everyone's seeing like we're doing crazy stuff, right? And people are like, what do you mean? This is just what we do. And it's like you were essentially in a certain sense like, well, yeah, I care about people. Clearly, I've been doing all these things and we're friends, but like, how are you okay with these crazy things we're just starting to do? So I think it's super valuable to kind of hear in a certain sense. And again, I'm not saying this in a pejorative term, like a normie type of person that just was out there living life. And then all of a sudden you're being forced to be like, hey, I'm being like how I've always been. But now you're telling me that I'm like a fascist and all these different things. So one, have you ever been called a fascist?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And then
Like,
two,
at this point,
right.
Welcome to the club.
Right. Welcome to the club.
We're both Uncle Toms and brown white supremacists. It's
all
great.
These things. But number two, I'm curious, after Annunciation, when you were just like, kind of walk me through that process. Obviously, tragedy, your heart is with so many people that you've probably had friendships with whose children were either killed or irreparably damaged, whether physically or mentally. But what was it that started to kind of shift in regards to the experience? And for you, what was that like? And can you describe any specific instances where you're like, hey, are you hearing yourselves talk? I'm just kind of curious what that experience was like for you. I know you've talked about it before in other shows, but I think it'd be great to kind of hear kind of your breakdown.
Well, I think the difficult thing, I mean, everything surrounding that, it was and continues to be difficult. And I will always acknowledge that my family did not have the worst outcome. And I am, and so thankful for that. But that fact also makes it hard to talk about because people are grieving and, people are trying to reconcile this in their minds. They're angry. They want a resolution. They want, to know that people were not killed or hurt in vain. And for a lot of people, that looks like policy changes. So anyway, I feel like it is a hard thing to talk about. And I think it's also interesting. Like, I never really cared about guns. It was never my issue. I grew up around guns. I thought, oh, they're fine. But like, I never was like one of those people was like, don't take away my guns. Like, everyone's trying to take my guns. Like, I never cared about it. So I do think it is like a little bit interesting and funny now that I'm like the anti-gun control mom.
Sure.
Because that was just never my thing. But that was kind of one of the main narratives, like that, kind of started emerging like literally like that day, within the hour, it started happening. And I guess a lot of it was like, not really even about the gun stuff. It was just like, and along with my husband, were really confused, I guess, by that response, because we felt like there were so many other things that we wanted to talk about, or we were kind of wondering, like, it really happened quickly that we were like, oh, like, I don't think we're on the same page. And that was the prevailing sort of narrative, like in the media and what everyone saw. And it was just, I don't know, it was a very weird thing. So anyway, it was like, we wanted to talk about mental health and gender ideology, which nobody wants to talk about, radical stuff. We wanted to talk about, like really like charged and divisive political rhetoric from politicians. And we send our kid to a Catholic school. We wanted to talk about spirituality. We wanted to talk about evil, like all of these things that we felt like were just, for whatever reason, like just not the conversation. So yeah, that was kind of where it kind of all started. And then once I did start, I wrote one thing and it was published in Alpha News. And I never had any intention of writing anything else after that. And I would say probably the only reason I did was because of the response, the positive response. There were so many people who were like, oh, thank you, for talking about this. And even, parents I knew, leadership I knew, who were like kind of on the DL, like, this is good. We need to have these conversations, but like, feeling a little bit too censored and like too afraid to really say anything, or they didn't want it to be their battle. And I thought, well, I'm not trying to have any battles, but like, come on, if there's so many people wanting to talk about this, I guess I'll just do it. It was whatever. At the time, it just felt like it was like my role. And now I just, I'm continuing to do that, I guess.
Yeah. So as this specific, event occurred and went down, like I said, like you said, and what I'm also curious about, it's like you're saying, well, this is an evil act, and who was the shooter? And everyone's like, no, we can't ask those questions. We can't talk about that. It's the guns. And at some point for you, was it like, yeah, fine, okay, it's the guns, and were people like, well, absolutely not, like, we can't talk about these things? And did you feel that there was even maybe some type of overt political pressure that you had to like stand unified as one, we're Enunciation, like, this is what we have to do? Or did you feel that you could kind of say, well, yeah, that's what they're doing, but here's how I feel? Did you feel at the beginning, or maybe now it's changed? Kind of curious from that perspective.
That's an interesting question. I think it's just such a tragedy. It's so horrible. And I think, the aspect of, community around it is really important. But also I don't know. I'm never one to just like go along with peer pressure. I mean, not that it's peer pressure, it's kind of the wrong phrasing for it, but like, for better or worse, I'm just gonna say what I want, and it's not really my business what people think about me or it. But it did feel like there Yeah, it feels like there's a really like what's the word, like strong sense that there are certain things that you shouldn't talk about, which
Sure.
I think is like evidenced by these kind of like hushed conversations. And it was hard because our child was in preschool at the time, so it's not like we had a ton of connections like within
Sure.
the community, kind of outsiders. And then I'm like, but wait a second, and I'm sure there are lots of people who think that I shouldn't be able to talk about it like I do, but everyone gets to process their experience differently, and that's just what we're all doing. um yeah, oh yeah, there's my article.
See, this is what I think is so, I think, helpful to this conversation. I'm asking you kind of more pointed questions, and your position is relatively straightforward. It's that, like, listen, this has been my experience. I'm not trying to tell other parents that their experience is wrong. I'm just saying these were my experiences, my thoughts, but you're the one that is being demonized and ostracized, which to me is like, it's a very, very simple way of pointing out, if a group of people, the person that says, "Hey, man, like, it's okay for you and I to disagree," and the other person's like, "You can't disagree. That's bad." You kind of already know who's doing, to me, the actual normal thing, which is, yeah, we're different people, different experiences, and we can fundamentally disagree on certain things. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, you're telling me you experienced this? That's impossible. Now, if you tell me that, aliens came and abducted you, and you were impregnated and you gave birth to 42 trillion, squid beings on another planet, I'm going
That's
to
so funny
say,
you say that, because that's going to be my next op-ed.
yeah, I figured,
Oh God,
it
never
rolls
missed the
off the
live
tongue.
show.
Then I might be like, yeah, that's not just your opinion, bro. Like, you need mental health help. But I want to just,
Time out now.
yeah.
Men in Black. All right, that could happen. So just
Hey, listen, I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm just saying, if you proceeded to tell me about the plot of Men in Black and you were like, it actually happened to me in real life, I'd be like, huh, curious. All right, cool. All right.
got some cell footage for me.
Uh, yeah.
Let me see some
But
proof.
would you
Yeah,
call me a terrorist for it though?
No, I definitely wouldn't. Or
no, yeah,
fascist.
no. I think
Or
that's a
fascist.
little extreme. That's actually, you bring up a fascinating point though, both of you, because in talking about like my immigration story and why I have some of the stances that I have on the situation with deportations and the ICE operations, I have a very I think what a lot of people would be surprised, or they've expressed shock at my take on a lot of that, and my stance and where I land politically with all of that, is that it's this idea that you have this entire party that's like, everything they've been doing for the last decade has been about, you got to respect other people's lived experiences. We have to have 120 million genders because you have to respect other people's lived experiences. We have to let the public schools have cat litter in their bathrooms, which is a thing. It did happen. My nephew sent me a picture on Snapchat. I wish I'd saved it. I don't have it, but I remember he sent me that when he was in high school, and I was like, what in the name of all that is holy, how far have we fallen from God's grace? What is happening? And yet they don't want to hear the lived experiences of anybody else, it seems,
Right.
which is really interesting, because like,
That's irony,
you're,
isn't it?
yeah, you're a second generation immigrant, right? Your parents came here, if I remember correctly.
My mother is a 8th generation American.
Okay, got it.
Who's 444, whatever. I don't know how many.
Yeah.
I think
like,
it's 8 generations going back, like in the legitimately 1500s came to America. But yes, my father.
There we go.
He
That's the
came
one.
here from Sierra Leone.
Yeah, and so you have that lived experience, and then there was like the conversion of faith in your family from Islam to Christianity, at least for you, having kind of growing up and getting to see both of those religions, and then I have the Shining Path is a terrorist organization in South America. They operate heavily in Peru. They attempted to blow up. They set off a car bomb next to the hotel that my parents were staying at when they came down to adopt us. So at 4 years old, they're trying to wipe out my family. And so my stance on immigration has been like, let's leave them down there. Let's let them sort that out. We don't need to invite more problems here. And it goes back to that, like respecting people's share, lived experiences. And it's interesting that you're getting this much pushback for your lived experience, from the party that touts lived experiences. I just think that's interesting, an irony and hypocrisy that I often see in the left.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's not like none of it is surprising. Well, sometimes people say stuff and I'm like, dang, like, really? And it's funny because I'll tell people that sometimes who are like very conservative and they're like, really, that's so interesting. Like, I read your stuff and it's really like pretty tame, which is how I feel about it. And I try to be super thoughtful when I'm writing stuff and kind of look at it from different angles. And so then when somebody does do something like call me a terrorist or something, I'm like, really?
You're like, if I'm a terrorist, wait till you meet some of my friends.
Well, I know. Like, I'm just like this mom was like playing monster trucks with her kid and like baking cookies. Like, I just do not, because I want to have conversations that are apparently not allowed anymore. Like, I am some kind of like unsafe person. It really, and I think,
I mean, that's an Obama era thing though, because even back then they were Christian, family-oriented people were considered somebody that should be on a watch list.
Mhm.
Yeah, but here's what I think happened, right? You're not wrong. I do believe that, and I have a broader analysis. The Democrat Party has a home of communist collectivist thinking because it just aligns too many values can cross over. But I don't think it was the predominant thought process in the Democrat Party until basically you had the overt Marxists, specifically race Marxists, and critical race Marxists that really took over during basically Black Lives Matter, and especially once George Floyd popped off, and you had broad sweeping adoption by Democrat Inc. et al. Of critical race theory. Then it was all gloves are off, and now it's like, oh, critical race theory, critical gender theory, abolish prisons, abolish the police, right? Like quite literally, once they got that foothold and you had the broad adoption, now it's just been like full sprint. And so now when you express those ideals, that already there were people in the Democrat apparatus that already had those values and beliefs, but they were a small portion that were vying for power. Once it was accepted, then it was like, oh, now we're running full speed ahead. So I did want to just kind of point out where people can go to find some of your works. You can always go to CallieProctor.com, and you definitely write a lot. What is the technical term? Are you like a columnist with the Minneapolis Times? Is that right? Or do they just publish a lot of stuff?
Yeah, I write a lot of stuff for the Minneapolis Times, and I think they're terrific because they genuinely represent like voices, like all voices within our community, and it's very refreshing because when you are writing stuff, there are so many places who will just automatic know, like if there's any themes, like if you have a line in there maybe questioning something with COVID or something, like I don't know, it's just you're donezo. So like it's nice to have places who are like really willing to publish people with genuinely different perspectives.
That's awesome. And you know what? I didn't even know what Minneapolis Times was until I was in for like a blurb, the documentary that Rick Kupchella put together, and I think she's the editor of the Minneapolis Times. I can't even remember her name. My bad. But she appeared and she was talking about the DSA in Minneapolis and specifically the city council. And I was like, Minneapolis Times, what is that? And then I started to read. I'm like, this is wild because again, it's mostly a bunch of people that are, I would argue, like center left, like center left. A lot of what I see, or just like just being again super me being politically biased, and people are like, oh, they're the right wing, like whatever. I'm like, they're literally not. Like they're center, maybe center leaning left a little bit. And based off of what I've read of you, you're like just really center, maybe center right on certain things I've seen as I've read your different pieces, but like truly as center as it could be. Where I know that there's people on the right that probably are like, you're a wolf in sheep's clothing. You're trying to get in and take over, you know.
Well, no, I think that's the really hard thing about it is because these days, like with this cultural moment that we're living in, like I feel like such like an outcast because like I used to be liberal enough for the liberals when I just didn't talk about anything. And now that I talk about things, like I'm obviously not liberal enough for the liberals because I'm like a fascist or whatever. But I'm also not really conservative enough for a lot of conservatives. So it's like a really sucky place to be, to just be like, you know, observing and kind of independently thinking about things. But again, that's kind of why I appreciate the Minneapolis Times because they
You mean you're a well-educated woman with thoughts of her own?
No,
and the liberals didn't get behind you on that? That's not very feminist of them. I got questions.
Oh gosh, don't get me
It doesn't make sense to me. It's like that would make you the poster child for everything that they espouse. You know, get your education, be well informed, have opinions of your own. Oh wait,
well, that's why I've
with what we think.
That's why I've said, and it's not my original thought in any way, shape, or form, but again, going back to, you know, even pre-Obama days, when I first got involved in the Republican Party was before Obama. Like Obama, the year I got involved in politics, I think Obama won his first term as a U.S. Senator from Illinois, 2006. And even back then, as I was learning about the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, I'm like, oh man, these guys are a bunch of commies. And I was like, again, from that biased perspective, and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, if I take a lot of your ideas and I stretch them out to their logical conclusion, you end at communism like all the time with all these different issues. And I'm like, just admit that. And you can at least have that tension of understanding. But even back then, I explained that what collectivism ultimately will do in every single iteration, it's just not a question of if, it's when, it will become a cult that you have to adhere to what the cult believes. Otherwise, you are ostracized. And I understand perfectly well that you can do that on the right. Like I believe that cultish collectivist mindset can happen on the right. It's just there's more of a tendency for it to happen on the left. But yeah, that's what happens. You can't just kind of be a centrist that might be liberal on a bunch of issues. It's like, well, on these issues, you're not, and that's all that matters to us. So if you don't believe that the white patriarchy is destroying, you know, black and brown people in America, you are the problem, Callie. How dare you?
No problem. But, you know, I see that now that I've become kind of politically engaged, like, you know, a little bit here, just, you know, dabbling. And I see that with the Republican Party here in Minnesota, like, oh my gosh, see, I went to the convention, you know, this year.
Yeah, you wrote about it. Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, I wanted to ask about that because the title is fantastic, and I want to hear more about what you thought of that.
Oh, it was so interesting because I was like, maybe I'm taking this too seriously when I got there because it kind of felt like a party, sort of like.
Yeah.
It felt like a fair, like a county fair to me. And
there's nothing more American than a county fair.
I know, that's what I thought. I thought like, wow, this is like some super American stuff. Like, this is great. But it was not what
I go to the DFL. Everybody looks constipated and unhappy, and like,
I thought like we could party a little.
They're all full of SSRIs and high carb food. I mean, nobody's happy.
High carb food.
Well, yeah,
it was a Republican event, and they're handing out meatballs, you know, and.
No, it was, and there were elements
red meat and freedom.
It was great, and it's always like fun if it's, to me, I see it so differently, I think, than a lot of people there because there's so many like career delegates there. Like they've been, like the guy I was sitting next to, a delegate for like 30 years or something.
A long time.
So I'm like kind of like coming in with this like, oh, I feel like I've been censored for so long. I didn't have anybody to talk to about stuff. So then it's kind of like nice, you know, you're in this, you think that you're kind of all on the same page. And then really like quickly you realize you're actually not all on the same page and actually everyone is fighting. And like the amount of times that I heard the term rhino, it was like I couldn't even count. And I didn't even know what it meant. I had to Google it. And I thought, I'm like, I better not talk to anybody. Like, I'm going to get called this name. And oh my gosh, people would go, you know, every time Michelle Tafoya went up or whatever, it's like you just the grumblings of Rhino in the crowd. And oh, she loves killing babies. And I was just like, this is.
So I will say this, all right? Like, it for being new to the political process and then going to state convention during this election cycle, like that's crazy work. And the reason why
that's like taking information like you're trying to drink out of a fire hose. That's what
yeah. Because like most of the time by this point in most previous election cycles, it's whittled down pretty good, and you actually have some kind of like, okay, the people that really feel that way, they're probably not going to come to the convention, not going to be a delegate. But in this case, yeah, there are some very, very sharp opinions. But here's what the proof will be. And I'm an optimistic guy. Yes, I'm politically biased. I believe that because this is a potential change in what has been the norm within the Republican Party apparatus, you saw a lot of anomalies. If you would have went to the 2008 state convention, which I was there, John McCain was basically the presumptive nominee, but Ron Paul had a very strong delegate showing in Minnesota. And a lot of the people that showed up to that caucus night were Ron Paul supporters. And Dr. Ron Paul was going to actually attend the convention. And the chair at the time, Ron Carey, shout out to Ron Carey, he was like, absolutely not. And a lot of the delegates, like I'd probably say maybe a third of the delegates were Ron Paul supporters. And it's like, well, Ron Paul's not going to be president. He hasn't won any of these states that matter. And it's going to be John McCain. And we're not going to allow this guy to come and speak. And at that convention, there was a lot of tension. And people were like trying to like run in with Ron Paul signs. But again, it would be funny to take a snapshot of who some of these actors, and I don't mean like fake, but who the political actors at the time were then and who they are now. And my point of that is that you would probably, your jaw would hit the floor if I pointed out, if we could go back in a time machine, I said, look at all these Ron Paul supporters that are all like, burn the system down, that are literally part of the system now. Like quite literally the highest echelons of the system, because that's what happens is that you come in, you're full of piss and vinegar. People are going to be mad, but people come together. You lick your wounds for the times that you lose. When you win, you kind of like, you know, show that, all right, I didn't know everything. But the question is, will you continue to move forward and find common ground? And I think that's the key, which you will see. It's a weird political season, but ultimately that's kind of where it is. I also wanted to ask before we get ready to kind of wrap this up, and we'll move on to just a couple of more funny stories that you might have some strong opinions on, Callie. I did want to ask, going forward, are you going to stick it out? Are you going to stay involved in, we'll call it the Republican apparatus? And if not, I'm going to force you to, but it's not really a question. I'm just going to make you stay involved. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious, like, are you willing to give it a shot and continue to just talk about the things that are important to you as a mom and as a person that has had this kind of awakening moment?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. And I know that I'm sounding like I'm just like being so hypercritical of all of it, but ultimately I really appreciate all of it. And I feel like I want to be like welcomed into like the community, so to speak. But I also am never going to be a person probably who will be like subscribing to a lot of labels. I sound like I'm like, you know, dating.
I like it. Be you.
But like yeah. And so maybe, you know, if people need to call me that, maybe I am a rhino. I don't know. But regardless, like there's no way that I can vote for the DFL.
Good.
I
I love it. Yeah.
I cannot do it after what has happened, after just seeing the state of things. I have a lot of feelings about downtown because I've always wanted to live here, and now I do, and I'm like, kind of sucks a little bit. Like, I have lots of feelings about the city and about just how things are, the trajectory of things. And I am being critical, but at the same time, I'm like, well, if my preferred candidate doesn't get past the primaries tomorrow, then I'm still going to vote for whatever candidate does. Someone in the chat just told me to turn my light on, so now I look like I'm glowing like an angel over here.
No, that's better than how dark it was. It was so dark.
You made us look pale.
I don't even realize it because I never put my blinds.
Sorry, it was right there.
No, it's me.
It's
It's me.
The natural light in here.
Yeah, I just want to again encourage people to go to CallieProctor.com. CallieProctor.com. Check out the works that she's doing, and at the end we'll also kind of plug some of your socials as well. But yeah, just a couple of last real quick points, and then also it looks like Kirsty had another comment and said we definitely need to talk to each other more. I really dislike how polarized our state has become. How can we grow and learn if we don't talk to each other more? And you're right. I mean, that's kind of like the 100%. Whole point of doing this, civilization thing. Is we have to learn to have conversations with people that have completely different feelings. But here's the thing, I know it's so cliche or whatever, but if I'm willing to hear you out and truly open myself up to understanding your perspective, my position will likely change, but so will yours. And that is true. I might come in just super hardened on this issue, but I've really never thought or considered what a different perspective would be like. And then the moment that we actually have a real conversation, oh, okay. Even if not, though, I think that's what you have to do to not, again, have the intent being judged of what other people, what's in their heart. I think you can be critical of other people's positions, but when it comes to speaking about people's critical positions, what was your favorite former NBA star, Enes Kanter, freedom, and Royce White declaring that they're going to join the WNBA 2027 draft? A former NBA pick follows through on his promise amid the Sophie Cunningham trans athlete debate. For those of you that didn't see Royce White, shout out to Royce, running for U.S. Senate tomorrow in the primary, but he was drafted overall. I think he was 15th overall in his draft class, and he technically was an NBA player. He played a handful of games, had some other whatever stuff going on. I've met him plenty of time. I've actually done a couple of podcasts with him. And then Enes Kanter, who I think definitely played more games in the NBA than Royce did. Definitely a more well-known name, but very outspoken during the COVID times. And he 100% is really coming out and saying this. So I'm just kind of curious, one, from your perspective, what do you think about this, Callie? Do you think it's funny? Do you think it's too cute? Do you think it's a good strategy to try and get the WNBA to really answer what is a woman?
I don't know if it's actually a good strategy. I'm not really sure. I do think it's funny for sure. So I struggle with Royce White as a politician, and have, historically not supported him because he says some things that I really don't like and don't agree with. Mm-hmm. But I did think this was very funny, to be honest, because I think it's good to call out the absurdity of all of it. I mean, it is insane. It is 100% insane that this is a thing right now. It's that and I feel, I feel for this girl, Sophie. I mean, gosh, she is just getting this abuse from everyone for doing what? I mean, just talk about feminism. What the heck are we doing? And I would never have expected Royce White to be the champion of feminism, but like, apparently he's leading us right
We
now.
are living in upside down world.
I know. Yes, that is how I feel about it. But I did think it was funny.
What about you, David?
Man, we went
you here
from
for it, brother?
idiocracy. What's up?
Are you here for it?
Listen, we went from Idiocracy being a film and fiction to being how the world literally is now, where politicians are decided by podcasters, celebrities, and talking heads. And I could see a president running for office someday and saying, "Brought to you by Mountain Dew." Legitimately, it's terrifying. And Taco Bell.
Mm-hmm. Even the Crocs. The Crocs have come.
Yes, exactly. And now we're living in that. I don't know if you guys remember that cult classic film, Juwanna Mann from back in the day.
Oh yeah,
Guy
dude.
gets kicked out of the
Juwanna
NBA,
Mann.
goes into the WNBA and just cleans house, just kills it. And now we're living in that time, and I'm waiting to see what the next 80s 90s film is that we're going to be living in. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Terminator with all the AI, but for now, this is fantastic. Yeah, I agree. Like push the woke ideology to its maximum end result to show how ridiculous it is. Because yes, if these two end up in the WNBA, like let's say they actually do it, and they really, I mean, because of their current definitions of women, legally they can't keep them out. They're gonna clean house. Like you could basically just like have them on a team by themselves. Like I'm not trying to be mean. That's just, I mean, Royce White is like what, 6'8".
Yeah, he's
he's a big dude. He's
dude.
tall.
He didn't look
He's
too
tall.
bad in that wig, so.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna
pull that up
because it's
look
super
at
funny.
this. Literally, that's the cover of the Juwanna Mann DVD right there.
I forgot about that movie. That is so funny.
Juwanna Mann. And so here's the thing, right? Like, again, I'm looking at everything through this political lens. Tomorrow is the primary day here in Minnesota. Royce has been polling second behind Tafoya by a lot. And the amount of press that I have seen Royce get in the last 48 hours has been massive. I've seen him on Benny Johnson, like all of this stuff, clowning around, being like he is in his feminine era and all that. Okay, everyone that's being serious understands that Royce ain't going to play in the WNBA. But it is a great political stunt to, say that I'm going to do this. But I will say this, all of that aside, put aside the political stuntery of it, to again help him one last minute push, getting his name out there. Brilliant strategy politically, by the way. It does force the WNBA to have to make a conscious decision. I think that Enes Kanter, his approach of writing the official letter, like they convene an emergency meeting to have a conversation, because a lot of the WNBA, they are woke and they are woke aligned with communists. And so they have fully accepted critical gender theory, but no one's tested it yet. No one's tested it. So if they test it, let's just play this through to its logical conclusion. Let's say that they say, yep, if you are trans identifying, you can play in the WNBA. WNBA is done. Toast, cooked. So then at that point, do you think it would be enough of a wake-up call for all of these woke aligned, or at least they go along to get along? Women in the WNBA would just sit by and allow kind of like the only option they have as a female athlete to make some decent money. And there's all the critiques you can have of the WNBA about how they're subsidized by the NBA and all that different stuff, which I'm there with you. But it would destroy the WNBA. If Royce White, he's 34 years old. He's not even that old of a dude. Like seriously went hard in the WNBA, he would score 100 points every game. And he would just like, it would be brutal. And if a bunch of like former NBA players started to come and like truly play in WNBA, it would destroy the entire sport. So
hold on now. They'd sell, think about all the tickets they would sell, AK. You'd finally have a full arena.
It would just turn into like the second G League then, I guess, that has a handful of women that can play in it. Like again, man, like it's absurd. So I think that the strategy is interesting if they can get the WNBA to affirm that biological females can only play in the WNBA, I think that would be fantastic. But if they, because the left is a cult, and I said this to you, if they're like, I guess we can't exclude trans people, the WNBA is done, and then maybe that will be the wake up point. But yeah, so I wanted to throw out this story, and then basically I actually want to go into, unless you got any stories that you want to bring up, just because we're running close to our time, but maybe move towards some predictions for tomorrow night. Anyone want to throw out some predictions of who they think is going to win?
We mentioned the name of America's sweetheart, Sophie Cunningham, and I can never say enough positive things about her. She stepped up after we lost Caitlin Clark.
After we lost her RIP dog. Come on,
not like that, but I mean in the sport.
Okay.
Geez, you know what I meant. Anyways, and it looks like she took a blow to the face down in Florida. I was trying to pull up the video of it. It's been an uphill battle for me here while we were talking, but it looks like Florida's attorney general is basically telling the WNBA, like, you better kick this
rein it in
off of the team permanently, or something serious, like something significant has to happen to this person, disciplinary, or they're going to pursue some sort of like assault charges in Florida because it happened in Florida. And I think that's incredible. I think that's a good thing. I think that you shouldn't be allowed to just elbow people in the face or whatever because they have a different political view than you, or potentially because they're a better athlete than you. You know,
I mean, listen, I'll
just saying,
if we're doing assault charges in pro sports, again, I believe that the WNBA should exist.
100%
on its face. Okay, on its face. Do I believe that the NBA should have to continue to subsidize them? Probably not, but whatever. Different argument, different story. But if you're going to get to the point that you're going to start charging people with assault, unless, like, again, we're talking like, to do a callback. If we're talking like Tanya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan attacking you with a crowbar, if we're in game action, you got to leave it to the refs. You got to leave it to the league. And I think that, again, that's a political stunt. Dude, I grew up watching the Chicago Bulls and Dennis Rodman, like, basically like diamond cutter people, all right, on that court, man. Like, the bad boy, dude, like Dennis Rodman was a bad man. He clothesline people. They played some of the most physical ball back during Jordan's era. Like, they were going wild out there. But if the women want to play basketball is a physical sport. Right. The league should rein it in for sure.
See, my thing is attacked, but I'm all about it, but then it's got to be even, because if the roles had been reversed and Sophie had caught this lady with an elbow on purpose and it was blatantly obvious in the replay that she did it, all the think pieces would be talking about how there was a race, a race-based crime happened.
There's a double standard.
You got to let them both have it then.
Yeah, there's a double standard for sure, but I don't think that going and charging assault charges when it's clearly something that happened in game, I think that's absurd. But that's just for what it is. Callie, any closing thoughts on the WNBA?
No, I mean, I hope Sophie comes out of this okay. I mean, I don't know. But like you were saying about how the girls, like, they're kind of on board with all this. And I don't even think I believe that. Like, when you see these interviews with the other players, they just look terrified. They are just like going over and over, like, every single word that comes out of their mouth so carefully to present some type of either advocacy for this, or like a neutrality, a position of neutrality, and just not be hated. Like, I think they're just all trying to not be hated. And
it looks like ISIS hostage videos.
Yes, exactly. They look like they're being held hostage, and they are just like terrified to utter a single word. And
their careers are being held hostage for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And what do you do in that position? I mean, like, how can you blame them for not?
Yeah, I honestly, in that case, it does come back to what I've said often. You have to find the character and fortitude to stand up for what's right, which we have a lot of those examples in both men and women sports. Obviously, with Riley Gaines standing up and doing what she did, I think to a certain point, Sophie Cunningham is doing the same thing. She is standing up. She's not backing down from her values and her positions. But that's what it takes, and it means that sometimes you are going to be ostracized. But I just think that Sophie Cunningham, if she continues down that path, she will finally have people that will support her, even from a cultural standpoint. And I think that that's what it takes. Whether, again, we talk about the NBA and playing in the bubble, and so many people that like Kyrie Irving, they were out there like, I'm not going to do this. Or even again, Ennis Cantor, like same thing happened with him about not getting into the jibby jab. And then you started to see Aaron Rodgers, and to the point where cultural dominance prevailed, and now Aaron Rodgers can go on live NFL shows and just like dunk on Fauci. Like before, he would be canceled, but he refused to back down, and I hope that Sophie Cunningham continues to do that. I think that
100%.
Caitlin Clark doesn't have that. I think that she has too much money to be made at this point, and she's taking the side of like, yeah, I don't like being attacked, but like I'm going to stand with the girls in solidarity with all the crazy woke nonsense. But maybe that will change. We'll have to see. So yeah, in closing, Callie, can you tell people where to find you? CallieProctor.com obviously is a good website to go to, but where can people find you online?
Yeah.
Where are you posting?
Yeah, I have a website with some of my writing and stuff on there. I kind of have like a blog. I publish some things, and then some things I just, write for my own. Subscribe to my blog if you're interested. I'm on X primarily, Proctor_Callie. So yeah, reach out. I also just love meeting people, having coffee with people, having conversations, even if we don't, even if, we don't totally align or we're not going to be best friends. I genuinely enjoy that.
Yeah, no, Callie, I'd seen you at a couple of different, like I saw you at Minnesota Mao, that premiere, which you are in Minnesota Mao. So if you guys haven't had a chance to go and watch that, go and watch that. That was my first introduction to you. And I saw you at the premiere. You were talking with some Turning Point USA kids that, as a side kind of thing, David and I have had a bunch of Turning Point kids on this podcast and have went and spoke at Turning Point events. And then I saw you at the Capitol for Center of the American Experiment, did their America 250, and we chatted and was like, let's grab coffee. And so we actually ended up going to the Boulevard, shout out to the Boulevard, and just got to know each other. And it was awesome just being able to connect with another person that's, I think, again, you help give good perspective, and I think that you have a bright future out there. But yeah, follow you there. Is there any things that you have coming up, any events that you want people to check out or anything like that?
Not really. I have a couple different things that I've been writing a lot about lately, and I'm kind of waiting to see where they'll be. But something that I have I've told you this, AK, a lot of feelings about is kind of my, time working in social services, specifically the harm reduction model that's currently used. So I've been writing a lot about that. So yeah, just look out and see. I don't know. We'll see where it lands.
Absolutely. And we would love to have you back. I think this has been
100%.
fantastic, being able to just kind of go around the horn.
We barely scratched the surface.
Barely scratched the surface. Yeah, no, that's when you're having a good conversation, when you're actually like bringing up all these different points. Absolutely fantastic. You can find me on X, Facebook, and Instagram at Real AK Kamara. So follow me there. Posting content on a pretty regular basis. I posted a hilarious recreation of the meme of the superhero who like has sweat on his forehead and he has to push 1-2 buttons, and I made it with Geraldo Rivera, and there's 2 buttons, and one says poop hole countries, but not poop, what President Trump called a bunch of third world countries, which is an accurate description. And then Geraldo Rivera said that deporting Haitians back to Haiti is literally sending them to hell. And so it's 2 buttons. It's either hell or poop hole country. And Geraldo Rivera. But you can follow me there on X, Instagram, and Facebook at Real AK Kamara. You can also follow me over on TikTok at AK Kamara. Haven't really posted videos lately. One of these days I'm going to start posting them. And I guess tomorrow, just want my quick prediction. I have no idea what's going to happen. That's my prediction. I'm going to be voting straight Republican endorsed candidates up and down the ticket. That's how I'm going to vote. And whoever wins to face off against the Democrats, I will support them wholeheartedly. So even if the people that I vote for don't win, and for those of you paying attention, for governor, that is Kendall Qualls. For Senate, that is Adam Schwarzy. For auditor, that is Nate George. For Secretary of State, that is Tad Jube, and for Attorney General, that is Mr. Ron Schutz. So yeah, that's who I'm going to be supporting. And if you want to support the endorsed Republican candidates, support them. Free to vote for whoever you want to, but that's who I'm supporting. And we'll see how tomorrow goes. But David, where can people find you, my friend?
Yeah, people, you listen, you can find me at the Peruvian Gentleman on all of my social medias. And real quick, I just want to mirror what you said about Callie. I think your story, the more you tell it, it's going to help a lot of people. Like I've always held the belief that people on the left, a lot of them, they're not necessarily this evil, whatever. I mean, are there some genuinely bad people pushing things in bad faith? 100%. But I think a lot of people on the left, especially amongst like the young people, like that are like the turning point student age group, that the people that they go to class with, a lot of them they're very deceived, or they're not involved enough to realize what's actually being pushed. And so I think what you're doing, the work you're doing, the you telling your story, it's going to help a lot of people kind of maybe ask more relevant questions and maybe actually figure out what they actually believe in and what they're willing to support. And I think that's incredible. You can find me in all my social medias. I'm constantly rage baiting leftists or posting things about pop culture. There are some big conventions coming up. We're in the middle of food truck season. So if you go to any of the food truck festivals here in Minnesota, you'll probably see me there. Because like AK, I'm a fat kid at heart. I'm just not as fat as I used to be. And yeah, that's what I'm going to be about for tomorrow's prediction. Man, I'm with you, AK. I have no idea. I keep thinking, oh, it's going to go this way, and then I'll read something else, or I'll talk to somebody else and be like, okay, maybe that's not the case. So it's going to be interesting for sure. But I agree with you as far as we need to back whoever wins the primaries.
Yeah, Callie, do you have any last minute predictions too?
I change. I think about it and like it's like day to day. I don't know who's in the lead, and now there's this, candidates have their kind of last minute, tactics, and I don't know. But like David was saying, I will just support whoever ends up winning. So we'll see.
Fair enough. Also, just want to plug and then kick it back over to you to bring us out. But again, we have this subscribe star for those of you that like what you've heard and what you've seen and want to support us as we continue to grow. You go to subscribestar.com/CW Unchained. And that's because Culture Warriors Unchained is too long. So CW Unchained. And there's three different levels: $5 a month Warrior, $25 a month Culture Warrior, $100 a month Culture Warrior Unchained. And you can support us. And again, we do have a subscriber. Shout out to a subscriber, which Drew is going to be sending out that Duty to Disobey documentary that he was in. And so that has been
we have a second subscriber.
Oh, we have a second subscriber.
We got one tonight. Yeah.
All right. Look at that. Got two subscribers. Shout out to that. If you want to help support the show, that is amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone as you watch and check us out. But yeah, David, take us out, my friend.
Yeah, the only other real quick update I wanted to give everybody. So I was just messaging back and forth. We do have a third leg to this panel, and our co-host Drew Outstanding. I just want to ask everybody to keep him in your prayers. Those of you that went to see the Duty to Disobey film, you understand that he's dealing with the fallout and the repercussions of the vaccine injuries that he received in his time in the service when he was forced to take the jab. So he's going to be dealing with some of that, and he may be taking a brief hiatus from the show. AK and I, we're going to keep him in our prayers, and we would just ask that you guys do that as well. And if you see him, give him a greeting out and about. He's still we'll miss him while he's gone, and we'll do our best to keep the show going and not let it all fall apart.
Absolutely.
He's good at keeping us on track. You and I derail a lot.
Oh yeah, of course. And
but yeah, so
yeah.
prayers for Drew. But yeah, you guys, it's been a great show. I feel like I said, we barely scratched the surface. So Callie, we'll definitely have to have you back on. But everybody have a great night. Go out and vote tomorrow. Participate in the freedoms that you enjoy in this country. Good night, everyone.
Culture Warriors Unchained. Weather entertainment.